Godliness with contentment is great gain. Put your hope not in riches, but in God, who blesses us through things that truly last. These wonderful words of Paul to young Timothy are the focus of our lesson today and are what we're going to be basing our crafts off of. This idea of being content with what we have and focusing on things of God and not on earthly things that don't last. Sometimes we can focus on cats too. That's okay. I mean, I don't think that was in 1 Timothy, but we'll roll with it. At any rate, we're going to make two crafts today that are focused on this passage from 1 Timothy chapter 6, which has really a lot of wonderful wisdom. But the first craft that we're going to make is about these things that we should look to and focus on and strive for rather than things like riches and earthly gain. So we're going to make a little heart wreath, not exactly a fall themed seasonal bit, but that's all right. Wait for the next one for that. But this one is just going to be a good reminder of the things that we do want to focus on. So we're going to start off with a paper plate, and we're going to surround this with hearts. But first we're going to decorate the plate itself, and we're going to note some of those words from our passage. Something like godliness with contentment. And this is an important one to talk about. What is contentment? What does that mean? And how can we achieve it? Is great gain. And then we'll say something like hope in the Lord and focus on ... and then that's where we'll have our surrounded by fun hearts that remind us of what we do want to focus on rather than the things we don't have, focusing on the things that we do have. So of course, you're more than welcome to add some extra decorations here. As always, we'll throw on our stickers. We'll put some happy face stickers because we're talking about contentment. So we want to remember that contentment means not quite the same thing as happiness. Happiness is based on circumstances. Contentment can go beyond those circumstances to other things that truly matter. All right, so now we're going to cut out some hearts. And we're going to be placing those hearts around our plate with words that are coming from that scripture passage and reminding us of the things that are more important to focus on than wealth or riches or things that we think are important but ultimately do not satisfy. So we'll do some pink ones, and of course you can do any color heart you wish. Yes, this is a bit cliche of heart colors, but it doesn't have to be. Or maybe this is for a Valentine's Day craft. Who knows? You get to choose how you're going to have fun with it. So we've got our hearts cut out, and you can follow the verse on this, or on your hearts you could also write things that remind you to be content and things that you would be content with, like food, clothing, house, things that God has given you. But that's going to be a little bit more on the next craft. I keep jumping ahead of myself. On this one, we're going to write the words of the verse. So we're actually going to write out the part of 1 Timothy chapter 6 that talks about what we should pursue, which includes things like love, righteousness, which is a little hard to spell out on a little heart, but that's all right. We're going to roll with it. Righteousness, godliness, faith. This is starting to sound a little bit like some of the fruits of the Spirit here. Fruit of the Spirit items, that is. Gentleness, and endurance, which is the fruit that God produces in us when we focus on Him and fix our eyes on the strength and love that come from God. So now we're going to attach these to the paper plate. You can do it with glue, or you can do it with tape or staples, which might be a little more secure just because of the odd angle at which paper plates sit and the ridges and all those fun factors, but you do it however you like to do it. You can place them around like this, like it's a wreath, or you can kind of slightly offset or have it to where your hearts are sort of dangling off the edge, and kind of show you a couple of those options. Lots of options, which is just totally up to you and what you prefer. And you're, of course, welcome to put more than that. We'll start with those guys there. Actually, we'll space these out just a little bit more for the aesthetic. There we go. And you can also, if you'd like to, punch a hole here at the top so that you can hang this lovely, lovely contraption, the pipe cleaner. And then we have our wonderful Contentment Wreath, which you can hang to display to remember the things that are important to focus on. So that is craft number 1, contentment craft number 1. Contentment craft number 2 is going to focus on the things that we have that we are thankful for. And this is a fun one for fall season because we're going to make a tree. Now we're going to start off for fun. You don't have to do it this way. We're going to trace the arm and hand to get that tree shape, and then we're going to decorate it with some leaves and other things and put it on a background. So let's start off by kind of just tracing as far up, have the arm be like the trunk of that tree, and the hand is going to be the branches. This is just kind of a fun way. Hands are great for making things like trees, and even sheep and turkeys and all sorts of other fun things. So maybe your subject does not have a watch, or maybe your tree just has a funny branch like that. Anyways, I'm going to cut that part out here. But that just makes it a little more of a personal touch, getting to trace around the hand. Of course, you don't have to do it that way. You could draw the tree rather than cutting out, or you could just make a tree shape with some branches. It doesn't have to be like a hand. Again, this is just us getting kind of too creative for our own good. So I'm going to cut that out. And there we go. Now we will glue that to a backdrop piece of paper. And onto that will go our leaves of gratitude. Da-da-da-da-da-da! Yay! So here's our tree trunk base. Here we go. And we can make a caption, something like, God gives me all I need. Sometimes there are things we want, but we don't need them. And I can be content. And we can put a reference here. 1 Timothy chapter 6. Kind of really the whole chapter. Or you can focus on focus passages there. We'll just say 6 through 12 is a good start. And we can also add that, forgot about that, we can add that to our plate. 1 Timothy 6, there we go. Now, onto my tree trunk here, which, as always, get more creative than this. I'm just showing you kind of the basic version because we are limited on time. But we're going to cut out some leaf shapes. And then we're going to write on those leaves the things that God gives us, the blessings that He gives us, He promises and provides out of His great love and faithfulness. Now, this is really a huge inaccuracy because I'm making 2 completely different leaf shapes on the same tree. This would not occur in nature, let me tell you. Trees have the same shape of leaves. They wouldn't be all variated like this. They also probably wouldn't have a really deep green next to a yellow, but you know what? This is not a real tree, so we're going to roll with it. I just had to throw that out there for accuracy purposes in case there are any arborists watching who might try to point out these flaws. I recognize the flaws, but I'm just rolling with it anyway because it's a craft and I wanted different shaped leaves. All right, that being said, now we will, wow, even another shaped leaf. This is just craziness. What kind of a tree is this? A tree of gratitude. That's what kind. Anyways, so there we go. Now we're going to write down some of those things that we can be thankful, some of those blessings that God gives us. So things like home, food, clothing, things like, it's a little hard to read on the dark one, family, friends. Let's not forget the greatest gift of all, Jesus. And again, add additional decorations and flair to this. We're just going with the basic version for timing purposes. And now we're going to glue our gratitude leaves onto our gratitude tree. And then we'll have this lovely reminder that sometimes we might want things and be frustrated if we can't have them, but we should be glad for all the things that God does allow us to have, because godliness with contentment is great gain. So even if we don't have all that we think we want, we have all we need because God has given us his Son. That is the important message of this passage. And now we have it handily communicated on a craft. If you'd like to hang this up, merely do the old hole punch-a-rooney and pipe cleaner-a-rooney. And voila, we have a lovely decorative tree of contentment or gratitude or whatever it is we're calling it. So we have our contentment wreath, our contentment tree, and a lot of reasons to love and honor God in all things and be thankful for what we have instead of striving after things that don't last or don't matter. Hopefully, this gives you a couple of ideas to use in incorporation with this really special and important epistle passage. We have a message that goes along with it, and we have message and craft ideas every week. So I hope that you will come back, tune in again, and hopefully this can be a blessing to you and your ministry, wherever and with whomever that might be. So go make some crafts, go make some disciples, go pet some cats. Have a wonderful week. We'll see you next time.